This is a hardcore movie, and I must say you have a refined taste because it's incredibly appetizing. If you're eating or have recently lost your appetite, then you definitely shouldn't miss this movie. It's the 2006 film Slither. The story begins with a man who has just been rejected by his wife and is so angry that he walks out the door. To address the urgency, Grant arranges to meet his ex-wife in a small grove, but before they can proceed to the next step, Grant discovers something unusual ahead. Approaching for a closer look, he finds a wriggling white mass. Curious, Grant prods it with a stick, only to have a parasite fly out and burrow into his body. In agony, Grant collapses, and with intense body convulsions, the parasitic organism enters his head. When he regains consciousness and gets up from the ground, he seems to have transformed completely. Grant ignored his ex-wife behind him and staggered towards his home. Returning home, Grant's behavior becomes extremely strange. Instead of going to the bedroom to sleep, he sets up a makeshift bed in the basement with leaves. Upon waking up, Starla, noticing Grant's absence from the bed, assumes it's due to the previous night's argument. Early in the morning, she plays a romantic song in the living room, hoping to make amends. Seeing Grant emerge from the basement looking bewildered, Starla remains unaware of his unusual state. They proceed with their next actions, but then, instead of going to work, Grant went to the supermarket to buy meat. Once a vegetarian, he now craved raw meat. What was once a craving for raw meat turns into an insatiable desire. He buys meat in bulk and locks the excess in the basement. Facing Starla's inquiries, he deflects with various excuses. Grant's appetite continues to grow, surpassing what raw meat can satisfy. He then turns his attention to the town's pet dogs. Within days, all the dogs in the town fall victim to Grant's actions, leading to missing dog notices covering the bulletin board. More horrifyingly, Grant's body undergoes a transformation. Catching Starla showering, he can't resist slowly approaching her, extending 2 tentacles from his abdomen in an attempt to attack. Fortunately, at this point, Grant has not completely lost his sanity, retracting his hand. But Grant then went to his ex-wife Brenda's house and finished what he hadn't done that night while her husband was away. After it was over, Grant came home and his whole head had begun to swell. Terrified at seeing her husband in this state, Starla is deeply frightened. Grant explains that he accidentally got stung by a bee and assures Starla not to worry, claiming he has already seen a doctor. But when Starla called the doctor the next day, she was told that Grant hadn't been to the hospital recently. It's only now that Starla realizes something is wrong with her husband. Unbeknownst to her, Grant is in the basement packing minced meat. Under the cover of night, Grant takes the packed meat to a warehouse. It turns out Brenda has been confined there by him, treated as an incubator for his next generation. Brenda's belly is swollen, and an intense hunger drives her to pick up a piece of raw meat and devour it. Brenda's disappearance quickly catches the attention of the police. Following the clues, they locate Starla, as someone saw Grant entering Brenda's house. Starla has no idea where Grant went. The arrival of the police strengthens Starla's conviction that her husband is hiding something, prompting her to immediately pry open the padlocked basement. As soon as she opens the door, a foul odor overwhelms her. When Starla turns on the light, a horrifying scene unfolds before her eyes. The bodies of various pets had been piled up all over the basement. Not realizing that her husband was the dog thief, she was so scared that she called the police. Who knows, Starla just called a phone call full of festering face of her husband appeared outside the window. Seeing Grant's terrifying appearance, Starla, in fear, tries to escape through the side door, but Grant intercepts her path ahead of time. Starla's actions disappoint Grant deeply. He never intended to harm his wife. But now, not only has she betrayed him, but she also plans to leave him. Excitedly, Grant pins Starla to the ground, intending to turn her into an incubator as well. Luckily, the police arrive just in time. Seeing the dire situation, Grant decides to flee. As the police chase after him, he disappears. However, the next day, the police receive reports of 2 farm attacks. The scenes are gruesome, and it's evident that Grant is the culprit. By deducing the targeted areas, the police quickly identify Grant's next attack location. Under the cover of night, they set up an ambush, planning to capture Grant alive. Before long, Grant appears, but his appearance has mutated to the point where he no longer resembles a human. With a swing of his long tentacles, he effortlessly kills a yellow bull. As Grant prepares to take away his prey, the police quickly surround him. Starla initially hoped to persuade Grant with love to get him to go to the hospital for treatment. However, the parasite has completely taken control of Grant's body. After a few roars, Grant turns to leave, but the enraged farmer blocks Grant's path with a gun. Grant decisively swings his long tentacle, instantly splitting the farmer in half. Seeing this, they immediately open fire. Unexpectedly, Grant's speed is too fast, and he disappears into the nearby forest in an instant. The police immediately caught up but unexpectedly arrived at the cabin where Brenda was held. Even from a distance, they could smell a foul odor in the air. They cautiously opened the wooden door, and the scene before them left everyone in shock. Brenda's entire body had swelled into a gigantic meat balloon, limbs entirely occupied, with only a head exposed. Despite her grotesque appearance, Brenda's consciousness remained clear. She inquired about the safety of her child and acknowledged her own repulsiveness. Apart from that, she felt an intense hunger. Brenda pleaded with the police to give her the raw meat on the floor. Seeing a dead mouse, Jack immediately ran outside and vomited. She didn't even look at how fat she had become and she still wanted to eat. But in the next second, Brenda's body started to writhe, accompanied by painful screams. Her body suddenly burst open like a balloon, and a dense swarm of meat insects erupted instantly. The sole mission of parasitism was to find a host and parasitize it. Several policemen quickly fell victim to it. Witnessing this, Police Chief Bill immediately instructed the remaining officers to cover their mouths. However, more than half of them still ended up parasitized by parasitism. Parasitism didn't stop. It swiftly arrived at the farmhouse. Kylie, who was taking a bath, was unaware of the impending danger until the meat insects entered the bathtub, but the meat insects didn't give her a chance to escape. In an instant, they burrowed into her mouth. Kylie tried to grab parasitism with her hands, but countless images flashed in her mind. These horrifying parasitism creatures, as it turned out, came from outer space and were accidentally brought to Earth by a meteorite. Kelly, who saw everything, was not parasitous. She exerted all her strength to forcibly pull parasitism out. Unfortunately, Kylie's family had all been parasitized. Hastily crawling out of the window onto a platform, she then leaped down to the first floor. She successfully hid in a car just before a large number of parasitism creatures caught up. Meanwhile, Bill intended to fetch a car from the farmhouse and then return for Starla and the others, but as soon as Bill left, the parasitized police officers woke up and began saying strange things to Starla. Then the other parasitist cops mutated and spoke to Starla as well. The tone was exactly the same as Grant's. It turns out that once parasitized, mutated individuals became puppets controlled by Grant. Grant, through the mutated individuals, apologized to Starla, hoping she would return to his side. But how could Starla agree? After being rebuffed, Grant kidnaps a female officer through a mutant in an attempt to threaten Starla. The policewoman tries to fight back, but the mutant spits yellow liquid in her face. The highly corrosive substance caused her to collapse instantly. Seeing this, Starla and Jack quickly made their escape. Meanwhile, Ally, hiding in the car, is in crisis. Mutated family members surrounded her, attempting to smash the car windshield and break in. In a crucial moment, Bill arrived, taking advantage of the distraction caused by the mutated individuals. Kylie seized the opportunity and ran out. Seeing the approaching mutated individuals, they quickly got into a police car and swiftly drove away. En route, they rescued Starla and Jack, who had escaped from the cabin. However, not long after driving, a pickup truck suddenly rammed into them at the intersection. By the time Bill regained his senses, a large group of mutated individuals had already gathered. It seemed the entire town had fallen. They opened the car door and abducted Starla from the passenger seat. Bill hurriedly crawled out of the car to save her, but ultimately, he could only rescue Kylie. Even Jack, who had fallen into unconsciousness, was taken away by the mutated individuals. However, after Bill and Kylie successfully escaped, they quietly followed the direction the mutated individuals had left. To their astonishment, they discovered that the mutated individuals were dragging the bodies to the same place, Grant's house. Clearly, this was the extraterrestrial creature's lair. Based on the characteristics of the parasite, Bill speculated that resolving the mother host, Grant, should put an end to everything, and Jack, who had just been abducted, had already been dealt with by Grant. Starla was carried to the bed by the mutants, but Grant didn't harm her. Instead, he meticulously dressed her up and even changed her into a white dress. Coming out of the bedroom, Starla found the living room filled with photos of her and Grant. It seemed that even though he had become a monster, Grant's love for Starla hadn't changed at all. However, with continuous consumption and assimilation, Grant's size had become enormous. Starla knew that if this continued, the entire world would be in jeopardy. Although her husband still retained a hint of consciousness, Starla had no choice but to end it all. She initially pretended to comply with Grant, letting him use his tentacles to pull her closer. Then, she spoke heartfelt words to him. After Starla finished speaking, Grant seemed visibly moved. When Grant relaxed his guard, Starla took out a prepared weapon and ruthlessly stabbed it into Grant's head. However, instead of causing harm, this action enraged Grant completely. His massive tentacle directly knocked Starla away. Just as Grant is about to deliver the death blow to Starla, Bill and Kylie finally rush in. Bill took out the only grenade he had and prepared to throw it at Grant. However, Grant instantly swatted Bill away. The grenade fell into the swimming pool and exploded. Two tentacles swiftly followed, one piercing into Bill's abdomen, while the other was firmly grasped by Bill. Looking at the leaking liquefied gas, Bill had a plan. Aiming his tentacles at the gas tank, he kept pouring gas into it. Grant realized that something was wrong and immediately withdrew his tentacles and pulled Bill in with him. However, Bill had achieved his goal. Enduring the pain, he urged Starla to quickly shoot. Understanding the situation, Starla hastily picked up the pistol from the ground and pulled the trigger without hesitation. After an explosion, Grant was finally killed, and the mutants under his control also fell down. After dawn, the exhausted trio emerged from the house, only to find human corpses scattered everywhere. They fought off the aliens, saved the planet, and became the only survivors of the town. But is it really over? The parasitism that attacked Grant in the first place isn't dead. It had crawled into the body of a cat,